All members are present for the regular meeting.
Hold on. Mr. Clerk, hold on, we got one thing.
Just a quick point of privilege. On November 7th, we celebrated the birthday of our wisest, eldest council member, Ms. Nine McGilliard. Just give her a hand. She has a hard work to do.
Can I take a minute? I need 1 minute.
Wisest. 1 minute.
I just want to say just a few things. I want to say just a few things. The first thing is that I want to thank you for making sure that each and every one of us are recognized on our birthmark. Okay? That really shows a lot of love, and I know that the council and the staff really appreciate it. But I also want to say to all of you who are sitting out there, and those of you who are not here, I'm a little teeny bit older. I love our city, and I love you sitting out there in the public, and you at home, and I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that we thrive and we always look good. Thank you so much for always coming out and supporting us, but more importantly, you are the community. Stay engaged, and I report to you. Thank you.
All right. That was a birthday present. Okay, Ms. Clark.
Okay. All members are present, with one exception, Council Member Jackson, who, by the way, from my understanding, had to be away to receive an award this evening.
Okay. At this time, we'd like the invocation by our chaplain, followed by the pledge of allegiance. You can stand.
Let us stand.
We got one.
Let us pray. We're so grateful, oh God, for all that you have done for us, for your blessings. We thank you for the unity of our city, for our mayor, our city council. So continue to pour out your wisdom and knowledge upon us, and may all that is said and done this day will be for your people. This we pray. Let us all say amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Clark.
First item for your consideration, Mr. Mayor and members of council, is the adoption of today's consent agenda, and I was just talking to the city manager who would like to remove an item.
Okay.
And I think
Yes, the request is to remove the item regarding the polls with AT&T Singular Wireless and put it on the regular meeting agenda for a brief discussion. I think the reason for that is that the language that you have received is actually going to change. Our legal team and the AT&T legal team are working together to make sure it's in compliance with FCC regulations. And so our partners from AT&T are actually here this evening, and they can give a little bit more insight, but in the interest of time, we wanted to just pull it off. It's a very simple and easy agenda item. It's just that the version that you have in your package does not fully comply with FCC regulations, and there's still some communication between our legal and the legal from AT&T.
If there's some communication between AT&T and our legal team, that has to take place.
Correct.
So you thought about moving to what regular?
We're actually just asking to give us the authorization. So we're in agreement on most of the principles, but to authorize us that when the two legal people work it out, that we're able to authorize that agreement when it's legally to form.
Why can't they bring it back at the next meeting?
Well, I think it's time sensitive, but I would again, if you pull it off of the consent agenda, we would allow our partners from AT&T to also answer some of those questions for you. Be the preference, and I believe they requested that we do it this meeting.
I understand, but we have to be in compliance in terms of our time in this building. I've been talking to Fulton County, and Fulton County repeatedly told me that we're going to have to cut down the time that it's taking us to have a meeting in this building.
Well, I tell you, Mayor, one thing we could also do is you could leave it on the consent agenda and edit it to authorize us to complete the agreement with AT&T under the legal parameters. I think that's the nuance.
I think that we have to have a motion for that.
Okay.
I make a motion that we amend the consent agenda item related to municipal pole attachment agreement to comply with FCC regulation and ensure it complies with our
legal requirements.
Our legal requirements.
Okay, can I get a second?
And authorize the city manager to thereafter execute.
And authorize the city manager to execute thereafter.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes. Mr. Clerk?
Well,
That's just amending it. We haven't voted on the consent.
we have to vote on this. Because
No, we're about to do
Okay, I have a motion.
All right, go ahead.
I have two motions. The first one is just to change the name of Shanan Jones to Miss Juan Smith for my ZBA appointee. And so do we need to vote on it?
What's that?
The other one is to remove the paying class from the consent agenda. I have one question.
Well, I better do one at a time.
All right.
All right. The first one is to remove Shanan Jones.
To replace Juan Smith.
And Madam Attorney, I think we can do that just an administrative change.
Well, you can do that, Mayor. What I don't recommend is you don't change documents because the council hasn't seen it, so they don't want to adopt the consent agenda with a document that you haven't seen. So I
Okay.
don't encourage
So
adding
why don't you
documents.
and that's just true because usually when we put something on, we let everybody know their resume and stuff like that.
Correct.
Yeah, everybody does have it. They do have it. It went out today. Everyone has it.
It did come.
Ms. Gillian and I spoke about it actually this afternoon.
It did not come
Does everybody have the resume?
No.
Do you have it?
I mean, I might have got it. I didn't see it. I just checked my email when it come through, but it's okay because I'm the one.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. No.
But it's okay.
Two people have it.
But it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Most of the people have seen the resume. What are we doing?
So if you vote to move, you can still move. I mean, it's just up to your vote.
Yeah, I move that we just swap the names out.
Second. Properly moved to second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes. Your next one was what?
To move the paying class to the regular agenda.
Why?
Because I have a question about it.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? I think that when we have issues like this, then maybe we need to take that issue and put it on the work session so that we can entertain questions that you may have. And I would caution us to make sure we do that. All those in favor? That passes. Ms. Clerk?
And Mayor, I actually have one additional item that Finance notified me about, and the Finance Department would like to pull the budget amendment item second from last to attach the cover resolution. Yeah, to pull it off of consent and just re-adopt it during the regular so that they can attach a budget resolution cover that you have not seen yet.
I was detained over here. All right. Say that again, Madam Attorney.
So the resolution cover was not attached when this item was put on the consent agenda, so they would like to pull it to circulate and let you see the resolution cover and then adopt it.
You're going to pull it from this so we can see a circulation cover and add it to the regular agenda.
Correct, because there's 2 pages, I believe the cover's 2 pages that you have not seen yet. So versus adopting it and not seeing the 2 pages that are necessary to add, they would like to circulate the 2 pages and then you add.
So we're going to be discussing just them 2 pages.
Well, no, you don't even need to discuss. It's just that we would circulate the document, and when we get to the item, you can, you don't have to have discussion.
I may go along with that.
It should be an add-on, it should be an add-on document. I believe they included it on the consent agenda
Without the resolution.
without the resolution. So they're asking to, if I understand correctly, they're asking to remove it from the agenda so that they can add the resolution on top.
I wish we find these things a little earlier when we get to the meeting. Okay. Can I get a motion for that?
What's the motion? What you
The
want
motion is
To remove it to the regular
to the
agenda.
regular, I make a motion that we move it to the regular agenda so that we can get the cover of resolution that goes with it.
Second.
I guess that's what you said. Sounded like you did. Okay. All right. All those in favor? All right, that passes. Anything else? I'll take a motion, I'll entertain a motion to approve this consent agenda.
I move that, I move that we approve the consent agenda for Tuesday, November 13th, 2018, as amended.
Second. Properly moved and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
I had a discussion.
Oh, discussion, I'm sorry.
Clarification, as it relates to this letter of commitment for Buffington Road, there is, what's the amount? Does this relate, you don't have to provide one?
No, ma'am, you do not have to provide an
The
amount.
amount.
They're asking for the letter of commitment, and it means that you're going to give consideration in 2020 and 2021 budget years.
Because we can't commit future
Correct,
funding.
Your Honor. There you go.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Okay? All those in favor? That passes. Mr. Clerk?
Attention to the approval of the regular meeting agenda as presented.
I have a motion. You have a motion?
Yes, I want to pull the department head ordinance from the regular meeting agenda. We want all of that.
And your rationale is?
The author of the ordinance is not here today. She is receiving an award for excellence in service in Washington, D.C.
Second.
Okay, properly moved and second. All those in favor? That passes, okay.
And Mayor, can I pull 2 more ordinances?
You know y'all ready to get number there.
Well, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, go
The
ahead.
first is the amended truck route ordinance. I'm pleased to announce that the Fulton County at their last meeting approved they concurred with the Buffington Road restriction. Public Works is getting the revised documents in place, so I would like to defer that till next meeting so that we can revise and update the
That
ordinance.
sounds good.
And then the second item is the short-term residential rental. We have, with the assistance of Councilwoman Gumbs, we have received substantial feedback on our proposed ordinance from a vendor who handles these type regulations, and we would like to go over those changes with the vendor in a administrative conference with the vendor on the 20th. So we would ask to defer that
That makes
until the
sense.
next meeting.
That makes sense. All right, I'll entertain a motion on those two.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the regular agenda as amended.
Will not accept the regular agenda.
Oh.
Can you to move those 2 items? Because I actually have.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to defer those 2 items until our next council meeting
Correct.
on November the 27th.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? That passes.
And Mayor, I have 2 additional items.
But you should need to wait for some more.
Yeah. Mayor, I have 2 additional items I'd like to add. These 2 items, they should be short and brief. My recommendation would be that if the council members have any comments on these, to forward them to me via email so that I can continue to incorporate. I circulated these on the 9th just for your review and information purposes. The reason I'd like to add these is so we don't have to have a special meeting to get these in place before the end of transition, and that would be to include Title V of the zoning and planning ordinance on the regular agenda with the accompanying Appendix C, which is the zoning resolution, and Appendix D, which is subdivision regulations, and to amend the regular agenda to also include Title 14, the environment ordinance, with accompanying Appendix E, the tree resolution.
That's a slick move. I like that. Too often put too long. Now, let me just ask you a question. Many times we've asked about any litigation that we need, not litigation, but any legislation that we need as it pertains to transition. Many times that we've been told that, no, it's not time sensitive. Is there anything else out there that we need to do between now and transition that is not coming before this board?
No, there is nothing else that is time sensitive where you need 2 reads. So this would complete that. We do have the police SOPs that I purposefully did not put on this agenda because I didn't want to make it unnecessarily lengthy, but that's a resolution, so we can easily adopt that with 1 read at the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, well, since you cleared the way, we're taking 2 hours, too long, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to amend the regular meeting agenda with those 2.
As indicated by
As indicated by the city.
Second.
Probably move the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes. Now I need a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Probably move the second. In discussion? Hearing none. Let's vote. That passes. Mr. Clerk?
Next 2 items are proclamations or recognitions. These are first items, a presentation by Coca-Cola for Small Business Incubator.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Williams, council, staff, and Mayor Edwards, and residents of City of South Fulton. I represent the Coca-Cola Bottling Company United. We are a small independent franchise of the Coca-Cola Company, the local bottler for the Atlanta area. My name is Carl Hill. I'm the Director of Multicultural and Community Affairs. And we wanted to present the city with a small token of $5,000 towards the 2019 business plans for small business. We have strong ethics in our company where we value our employees, our customers, our consumers, and then our community. That makes up the Coca-Cola United family. So to our family, small business is kind of the lifeblood for the community and also our business. And we wanted just to get this small token to start off those 2019 plans to a great start. So, thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Carl Hill here. I told him he's the next call where Coca-Cola.
Oh, man, I take that.
That's a big jump for you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good, thank you for being here. And I also want to thank Councilwoman Willis, who has been instrumental in helping us make this contact and get all this going. But let me say this to you. This is a classic example of public-private partnership. Every time we do something in the city, it doesn't have to come out your pocket. Sometimes those who've done business with us, and we drink a lot of Coca-Cola. Sometimes we have to depend on our partners. And Mr. Donald and I have been dealing with this deal of the what was it? What did we do? Incubator. Yeah. We had to remind me. We've been dealing with this issue of Incubator, and what I did was I sat down here and we listed a bunch of people that we felt could come in and help us with this incubator. And this incubator is going to be great for small business. It's going to help small business in being productive at what they do. And Coca-Cola and the next company that's coming up, this is the first 2 that stepped up and gave us a check. And sometimes it's not all about money. It's about, and they know this, and I've talked to them, it's also about what else can you do for us? If we're going to teach our business people how to be business people let some folks from Coca-Cola come in and teach classes. You can buy furniture, you can equip a room, whatever the case may be, and they have agreed to do that. So I want to say thank you to Coca-Cola for all that you've done. Ms. Willis has forgiven you. No, she ain't. But no, she ain't. But we thank you for what you've done, and we're going to make sure that this Fulton County Incubator be one of the best. South Fulton Incubator. I sound like the media now. South Fulton Incubator be one of the best incubators that we know, and we know we can do with your support. Mr. Don, you want to?
I'll just say I'm super excited to support the council. They've been very focused on business development and ensuring that we kind of take our efforts for small business to the next level. And so having Coca-Cola step up to the plate, Coca-Cola bottling specifically step up to the plate and support our efforts is a very big deal for the city, for our mayor, for our council, and for our citizens. So super excited for that.
I want to thank Coca-Cola. We did have a rocky start, but Coca-Cola came into our community and they were committed to making sure that they work with our community and they become community partners, and they have done that. They have supported all the projects in the area, and thank you for supporting the mayor on his initiative for the incubator.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3. One more, 1, 2, and 3. Wait. Good. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Make sure.
Who wants to check?
So your next presentation is by Georgia Power for a job fair.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dion Tucker. I am the South Fulton Area Manager for Georgia Power, which means I have responsibility for all external activities. And on behalf of Georgia Power, we believe in being citizens wherever we serve, and that includes jobs and the expansion of jobs and the creation of jobs. So we ask that you all accept a small token from Georgia Power to help with the upcoming job fair in South Fulton.
Dion and Brian, one of the city manager and I went out and talked to a lot of businesses on Fulton Industrial Boulevard. And one thing, believe it or not, they told us, they were concerned about the workforce in our community. They didn't hire a lot of people from this community, from our city. So we got the idea that, well, let's have a job fair. And they're paying pretty good money out there. Let's have a job fair. And we brought it up to Georgia Power. Georgia Power, I've been making sure that I got a lot of people I'm talking to. I'm going to get them all, though. So we've got Georgia Power to thank you so much for it's going to be your first donation. $5,000. Also, let me for this job fair, they're not here tonight, but Miller Zale, one of the largest businesses we have on Fulton Industrial, have also committed $1,000 to this job fair. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, we have partners out here that we just have to touch base. You know, one time someone told me, said, well, a big company, I said, why haven't you given any money? And they said to me, because you ain't asked. So we have to ask sometimes to get what we want. But we appreciate this token. And we'll be back to you, Dion, you know I'll be back for some more. And that goes without saying, but thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. One, 2, and 3.
Oh, let me see if my partner crying while I say something.
No, listen, that's it. We good to go. I think we're excited. One thing that we do want to highlight, while the businesses are on Fulton Industrial that we'll be recruiting for, it will be for City of South Fulton residents only. And so the average wage on Fulton Industrial is about $19.50. We've identified companies from Pepsi to Miller's Ale and some others, so we're extremely excited about helping City of South Fulton residents get jobs.
All right. Thank you all so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that you missed one of us down there at the presentation. Ms. Gilliard, she would have come down and she hasn't been feeling good. We're going to keep her up in next week. Thank you. Ms. Clerk?
Okay, you have 7 public comment speakers. So the first 4 speakers will approach the podium in the center aisle. That's Mr. Joseph W. Thomas, Mr. Rick Jarvis, Thant Coleman, and Mr. Reginald Tatum. Mr. Thomas, you're up first.
My name is Joseph Thomas, and I'm in the 3rd District. I say good evening to the council, to the mayor, to staff, and city manager. There's been discussion tonight, so I'm almost like, a day late and a dollar short concerning the code enforcement and how that's going to go. And I don't have any problem with how that happens. But my concern is that right now, and they are covered, if there's a planned operation, if they know they're going to an area where there might be some problem, they can get police assistance. I'm talking about the everyday when they go knock on somebody's door and people let the dog out on them. They have to run to their truck because they have nothing but their radios to say help. And by the time help comes, they have been bitten, or they have been chased, or they have been hit. And that little area there isn't being talked about. What's being talked about is if it's planned, they're going to have warning things on their side. That's not enough when you're knocking on the door and somebody puts their 100-pound pit bull at you. They got to literally run to their truck or run somewhere because they have nothing else on them. The post delivery people have more than what our code enforcement officers have when they're out knocking on somebody's door. And that's not right. So I don't care how it all happens, but y'all need to look at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, Rick Jarvis, Latham Home Sanitation. I was asked by the small haulers to come before you tonight to thank you for listening to what they had to say and lowering it down. As a result, every one of those haulers qualified as a vendor in your city. And I feel like as being an older hauler in the city that I need to do a little bit more. So what I'm planning on doing, and this has to do with, I have a personal reason with the fire department. I've talked to Chief Harvey about it. Fire station number 1, I will donate all the roll-off pulls on your renovation at no charge. And then I looked at all the big companies, and I started with A and went down and said, I need somebody to pay disposal. Advanced Disposal was the first phone call. They stepped up, said they'll pay all disposal. So all your disposal and all your roll-off pulls for Fire Station 1 are donated to the city for the citizens of South Fulton. And that's something I felt like I needed to do.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Reginald Tatum, and I live in the city of South Fulton. And I'm here to address the unacceptable behavior of 2 our council members. Now, I was at the original meeting in 2005 to help create the city of South Fulton. We fought and we fought and we fought, and we made it happen. And as a result of that, all 8 of you all are sitting before us, carrying out our business. Now, Khalid, you said it best in your Facebook post. Many times in African American organizations, it's brought down from the inside. And we are not going to let nobody nowhere on earth bring the city of South Fulton down, because this is our city. It just don't belong to a couple of people, it belongs to all of us. And for us to be embarrassed on the news for 2 weeks is a disgrace. And as a taxpayer, I would never ever accept that for nobody. Now, here's what I'm suggesting. Anytime something like that happens, I would like to see our mayor and council address it immediately. Because there's no way we can go on and on and on and let people think that that kind of behavior is acceptable behavior, and it's not. And all the good things I heard here tonight, we're doing too good. Yes, we got some bender, but we're doing too good to have that kind of mess taking place in our city. So I encourage each and every one of you all to please, please, please make sure our behavior is intact. It don't make no difference who started. Somebody got to be the bigger person. Thank you.
I want to thank Coleman, Ms. Lynn King, Ms. Glenda Collins, Mr. Christopher Brown, and Ms. Helen Vance. If you would all please approach the center aisle.
Van Coleman, District 4. Councilwoman, happy birthday. All right, so first thing, I happen to have gone out today to the discussion, sort of the briefing on the Bishop Road landfill issue. So I certainly want to thank the mayor, definitely want to thank the fire chief, definitely want to thank the city manager for sort of giving folks an update. But at the same time, I think that we could stand to do a lot better. The issues there are relative to communication. That's all, right? So we got the news today. We understand, we know what's happening. We know that we know and understand the capacity of our fire department. We know what they can do, what they can't do. We know that the EPA or EPD, these other organizations are being brought in. But again, that's today's news and a one-time shot. I would like you to at least consider that when we have issues that fit a certain criteria, that you employ the standard mechanism of communicating with the community. Not the one-time meeting, not something that's reactionary because there's a lot of chatter online or something like that, but let folks know weekly. Give some sort of online messaging or status, or at least hold some sort of status phone call. At least have a special 1 hour, 30 minutes, whatever else it may be, and give folks the opportunity to understand what has changed from day to day, what changed from last week. If you have reached out to the EPA, folks would like to know that. Maybe then it's our turn to lean on the EPA folks to give you the response that you need. All of those other sorts of things. Now that's somewhat open book. So again, you realize, and I know you do, that the community will jump on you when they think you're acting slowly, but that same community can jump on these other organizations and try to get these things done quicker. So again, I would offer that you consider the best mechanism. If that's simply a letter, some sort of PR, whatever else it may be, that information will get out. But again, people would like to know. So please think status to stakeholders, status to the community in those special circumstances. Thank you. And again, happy birthday.
Good evening. Lynn King, District 4. From Miss Naima Gilliard here. Happy birthday to you, dear. Good evening. First of all, council, mayor, city manager, and staff. I want to thank you for this time. I want to introduce you to my foundation. I am board chair of Dream Big Angel Network. We are a 501c3 organization, and we make Christmas happen for children who otherwise may go without. And I wanted to introduce you guys to our foundation. My request to you this evening is twofold. It's in regard to if you guys would be willing to support us in our holiday gala and toy drive. This is our major fundraiser that we do every year. And if you don't mind, if I could approach, I would love to provide flyers. This year, our focus is on children who have been victims of violent crimes, and these are stories that you all are probably very familiar with in terms of what you've seen on the news. Mothers who have been shot and killed, leaving babies behind. The level of domestic violence that has occurred, and some of these children will be without one or both of their parents for the first time this year. We would like to see if you guys would be consider sponsoring the honorees table, which would be for the family members of the victims. But this year we will be giving out the Randisha Love in Your Own Corner, Your Corner of the World Award, and would like to see if a member of council or the mayor would be willing to come and make the presentation of that award to a citizen that has exemplified a level of excellence in giving to the community. Randisha Love is a young lady who was shot and killed in South Fulton in 2016. That homicide is still unsolved. So we want to bring attention to that as well and hopefully get leads generated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Chris Brown. I'm actually a resident of the city of Atlanta, but I came down on the criminalization bill that you're talking about. I have a lot of family stay in South Fulton, and we in the city of Atlanta kind of lean on you guys. In South Fulton is our chocolate city. She's handing out the handouts now. As you talked about stats and trying to look at best practices, there's been a lot of conversations around the decriminalization. It started with Clarkston to Atlanta and then to various other cities. We just actually have some of our state officials that's addressing this issue under the Gold Dome. So we're just asking that you kind of stand fast on trying to go up on the fines. You have a great model because you do allocate money toward education. There are some best practices and things that we can also lean on you guys with and help you guys with to help evolve that piece, as Atlanta is also trying to, it's time for them to do their annual revisit of decriminalization. But as we move forward under the Gold Dome and as the country is in turmoil and as we just moving forward, these are things that we just want to make sure that we consider, because there are economic opportunities that will be available to South Fulton and things that we can actually do to decrease crime and just solve issues. So I'm just asking that, you know what I mean, if you will consider not moving forward on the increase of the bill and allow for us to feed you more information about what's going on so that you can have good stats and facts about what's going on. And my email is in contact information is on the contact card, and we'll definitely be in touch and invite you, as you see State Representative Sandra Scott, we just had in Morehouse this past week. It's a 4-part series, and criminal justice reform is one of those items which the decriminalization is a part of. So I will make sure that you all get copied on the email list that goes out to legislators, but definitely as we move forward, because we don't want to see our largest city in the state of Georgia that is full of minorities be the one with the highest fines, because that's our argument too, is that we are the ones that's being leveraged upon on these non-ticketed offenses, and we already banned the box. You know, the whole spiel we already went through already. So as you already made the first measure to move forward, we just ask that you stand fast and just allow us to help this idea of what we can do more. You know, I work with Langston Hughes and Douglas High School, very similar in size and issue, comparable. So that's all I ask, and I come here and say thank you for doing such a great job in my first council meeting. I got great things going on down here.
Good evening, my name is Helen Vance. I'm from District 6, and I represent Old National East Homeowners Association. And first, I'd like to pay a compliment to code enforcement and some disappointment. We were notified that we lost our code enforcement officer. He gave us a very high level of service. He was very responsive, and the residents of Old National East were very satisfied with the results. Which leads to another point. Before his departure, we had an issue in the 5400 block of Schofield Road. That property belongs to the city of College Park. It now serves as a semi-dumping ground for those residents in Old National East and the adjoining Clayton County subdivision as a trash dumping ground for household trash. Which brings me to my third point. Now that we have a list of vendors for sanitation, and we can choose from any one of those, who is going to police those properties that do not have sanitation service? If that is going to be some of the residents, for some communities, that will be very easy. For other communities, who's going to police that? I will continue to stay on the website under the sanitation site to get answers and suggestions for policing of residents not having sanitation service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Glenda Collins, District 5, Fellwood. My first concern is about the roundabouts and all the roundabouts that we are going to build. It appears as though some people do not understand that they're supposed to yield when they are turning in these areas. Another problem I have is Aerotropolis Atlanta CID GDOT project. It appears from what I heard tonight that we're probably getting shortchanged. Now that the decision has been made and the trash vendors have been selected by the council for trash pickup, I would like to explain to the vendors that in order to maintain their business, there are several factors that are needed. Great customer service skills by the individual companies. With competition, you must offer a great product and be creative. Your pricing must be competitive. Since there are vendors, maybe they should attend some of the HOAs in the city of South Fulton to generate new customers. Offer special rates for the initial setup and for seniors. How you maintain your business determines whether you remain in business in the city of South Fulton. Thank you.
No further speakers. Mr. Mayor, members of council, that takes you to your first business item at the bottom of page 2 under resolutions. Resolution 2018-073, resolution to establish workers' compensation protocols and for other lawful purposes.
Mr. Tom, speaking on this.
I am not.
The workers' compensation.
Ms. Whit, Mr. Malazzi, won't you come to the podium?
This workers' comp is to help to cover the elected officials as well as different volunteers that he may provide services to the city of South Fulton. The employees already have workers' compensation.
Okay. Any questions? Is this an action item?
Yes, sir.
It is.
Yes, it is.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2018-073.
Second. The properly moved and second in discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That approved unanimously.
On the top of page 3, for second reading, sponsored by Councilmember Rao, ordinance 2018-042, an ordinance creating Title 17 of the City Code of Ordinances to adopt regulations for maintenance and use of rights-of-way, for permitting of special events, for permitting of utility encroachment, and for other lawful purposes.
Is all acceptable?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2018-042.
Second. Properly moved and second in discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Mr. Brown?
That takes you to Roman numeral 5 for first reading. That's co-sponsored by Council Members Willis, Rao, and Gums, ordinance 2018-045. This is an ordinance to create Title 16, alcoholic beverages, of the City of South Fulton, Georgia Code of Ordinances to provide for severability, to repeal conflicting ordinances, to provide an effective date, and for other purposes.
I'll accept the motion.
This is the first read. This is the first read. I met with, this is the first read for the alcohol beverage. This is the first read. I met with Chief Meadows on this and our attorney. This is the first read, so I would ask if any council members and the co-sponsors, if you all have any recommendations or changes, please get it over to me prior to November 27th, the second read.
Okay. And if you could copy me too, so that
yes, please copy me as the lead sponsor and the city attorney, and also Chief Meadows.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Mr. Craig, I know there's a couple add on that.
That's correct. We have a few items that were removed. So you want to do the add-ons with the two ordinances that...
Yes, go right. She said it won't take long.
Okay. Yeah. So the first one she identified as Title 5, zoning ordinances, and then the subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, we need to pay attention to a couple ordinances.
So Mayor and Council, this is Title 5 zoning and planning, as well as the accompanying Appendix C. I made that appendix to your Code of Ordinances, which will be the zoning resolution, and D, the subdivision resolution. This is just for your first read on this document. It's gone through Planning Commission review. They made recommendations, which I put in front of you, that we've incorporated into this document. Again, if you have questions, ideally, because this is so exhaustive and so many pages, if you can email them to me, I'll incorporate and we'll recirculate a next draft for your next meeting. You will also have a public hearing on this at your next meeting because it's a text amendment, so you have to have that public hearing, and it will be part of your zoning schedule for the next meeting.
Great. So it's my understanding that we are pretty much wholesale adopting Fulton County's zoning ordinance and just changing Fulton County, the city of South Fulton, and making a few more changes that were recommended by staff. This
For
is
the
not
most part, correct.
Right. So this is not the what we will pass. I want to be clear for the audience as well and for us. But what we will pass, we're not voting on this tonight. But we do have to vote on it at the next meeting because we have to have something in place by November 30th.
Correct.
Or else we would have no zoning code.
Correct.
So this is not our final zoning code. We are going to, is Ms. Reed still?
She had a family emergency,
Okay.
so she had to leave.
Because I spoke with her today, I don't know if we're all clear, but there is a firm that is being hired to look at the entire zoning code. They're going to meet with council. We're going to have lots of community meetings.
Correct.
Afterwards. So this is not the final.
Yeah, this is strictly to maintain the status quo until the process you discussed.
Right. Okay.
The second item is
I'm sorry, hold up. Ms. Bulletin. I'm sorry.
So if we need to make any changes, when is the moratorium over for our zoning?
December 19th.
Okay, I probably need to extend. So if we need to extend that, the moratorium on our zoning, the reason I'm asking is the purpose for us putting a moratorium is to give us the opportunity to update the zoning ordinance, and we just hired a consultant, and now you're asking us to adopt Fulton County Code, so it won't be lawless, and there's a lot of things in that code that needs to be updated. And so would you recommend that, along with adopting this code, that we look to extending the moratoriums?
The same rationale that justified putting it in place continues to exist. So I don't see a problem with extending if you don't want development in place until you definitively decide how you want that area to look.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Clerk.
So the next ordinance is Title 14, pertaining to tree resolution. Is that correct?
That is correct, and this is also the first read for this document. And I would just like to thank Councilwoman Gilliard. She spent a lot of nights up late working on this, it appears, because her changes and her comments were very exhaustive, very helpful. And this is just first read. If anyone else has any comments that they would like me to incorporate, just present it back to me and I'll make those adjustments.
All right. All right. Any further comments? Ms. Clerk?
You had two items as well that were removed from today's consent agenda. Just as a reminder, we took care of the zoning board of appeals appointment as requested by Councilman Khalid, and you also took care of the amendment to the municipal poll attachment to comply with the FCC regulations. So letter H regarding the revised pay and class scale, and then the fiscal year and budget amendment. So letter H, I guess that would be presented by Frank.
Frank,
do you have copies?
I gave you the resolution. You have,
I got you.
this is the resolution, Mr. Massey. Mr. Massey, this is the resolution.
Okay, this is the resolution. So the manager is indicating this is the item he spoke about earlier where they're adding a two-page resolution.
Yeah, where's the two-page resolution?
But I don't know if that's actually letter H. I know you called out letter H, but I don't think that's letter H.
Okay, is this the budget?
Yes, it's the budget.
No, we're on the pay, class. Hold on.
You're handing that out.
We're on pay class now, which is not.
Right now, we're on the revised pay scale.
Yeah, then that's not what that is. So that's for human resources. Is Ms. Henderson still here? So I know
Letter H.
So this was pulled because Councilmember Khalid had a question. So this was pulled because Councilmember Khalid had a question. So it's probably that's probably the best way to proceed is to entertain the question.
Okay, I just want to make sure our new pay class schedule was in compliance with our resolution for the $15 an hour minimum wage, and I hear that it is, so I have no further questions. I do want to just acknowledge Ms. Wan. We nominate people to boards, sometimes we forget to acknowledge them. I just wanted to just wave your hand.
And I would like to say she's a proud District 3 resident, so I'm happy that we now have two District 3 powerful District 3 people on the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
Councilman.
All right. Ms. Khalid, you got your question ready?
I'm sorry, do we? I guess we need to make a vote for the pay class, so I'll make a motion that we approve the pay class.
Second. Properly moved to second. In discussion? All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Next, Mr. Clerk.
You have letter K, and that's the one we were just speaking about. This is the budget, year-end budget amendment, and this was adding the resolution. Yes.
Is this the two-page thing?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. I should pass the two pages up. Long time ago.
And this is almost identical to the form that you used for all your prior budget amendments. It's strictly the resolution listed from the top.
So I asked the question when you did this, are we just talking about the two pages? Is that still correct?
That is correct, Mayor. It's the same document that you reviewed on your consent agenda with the exception that 2 pages have been added at the top.
Okay, does the two pages make a material difference in the?
No, it just speaks that whereas they're adopting the document that's behind it.
Okay, I got you. So I'm going to take a motion.
This budget amendment is 2018. It's just a financial, just balancing here and there. There's nothing that you need to do, but just to adopt it that we have balanced it. We are in line with what the budget was adopted for.
We got it. Okay, so I'll accept the motion.
Make a motion to approve resolution amending the South Fulton fiscal year 2018.
Second. Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, that takes you back to page 3, letter C, action items, request approval of proposed legislative review process.
Who's speaking on that?
Well, I believe Mr.
Come on,
Massey.
Mr. Ronaldo.
And so, Mayor, I think what was asked by the council at the last meeting was that we highlight that we've incorporated the changes that have been requested. And as such, I think the council would then entertain a motion to approve the new legislative process and give us direction on when it becomes effective.
Okay.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
Just explain
We took several of your updates and comments at the last council meeting, and we incorporated those into the new document that you have now. Primarily, one was to have the city attorney review in tandem with the records administrator when you guys submit legislation for review. We also incorporated a second review by the city attorney after we have submitted to the budget manager and also department heads. So once, if there are any major changes, the attorney will have an option to review those changes and approve the legality of those to make sure that we're still in line with their legislation and they didn't change it dramatically in one way or another. And then the other was prior to that, so the attorney will also have the option to approve and deny legislation at the very beginning, so we can avoid any duplicity that may take place. So if someone is working on it already, we'll find out then. And then also just to ensure that it's a legal document that we can move forward with.
Any questions?
Yeah. Just noting, Councilmember Gilliard, is actually in your packet, page 214 is the updated flow chart that you guys requested. In your original binder is the last page.
I can't read the flow chart. That's right. Okay. Hold on, wait. But one of the points that I wanted to make is to city manager, Mr. City Manager. One of the points that I wanted to make was that when it was brought to us earlier, we talked about, and specifically me, I made this point because I made the point that normally you'll go to the attorney to help write the legislation, and that it would be really great if it would go to the attorney and to Mr. Pascal at the same time, so that he would know that it's in process. But this says, the as is correct, but the first says, establish the records administrator as a single point of contact to manage the process. So I go all the way down, and I don't see any language on either page, 2, 9, or 210, where the attorney is involved in it at all.
So on your flow chart, if you look at it, it actually goes to both of them simultaneously. So it's the first, it's that green box. It represents they both receive it, just as you guys asked. That's the change, is that they both receive it at the same time. That's why you don't see it go back to her.
Okay, so, but my point still is, in the narrative of it, it doesn't agree with what the chart says, because in the narrative, she's nowhere in the narrative.
Remember, we didn't adjust the narrative because...
Oh, I thought you did that as well.
No. So what you asked was that we update the flow chart to show how it was going to flow before implementing.
Update the process, not the flow chart. Because the flow chart should represent what the process is.
Correct. And
so the subject of this, the subject of this is proposed legislative review process. So the process that's outlined in narrative should agree with the flow chart.
So council member, at the last meeting, what council asked is, while looking at the flow chart, that we update it and bring the process back to you. We have not updated the narrative. We updated the flow chart process to illuminate the changes for council's review and approval. If council reviews and approves and believes that this visual flow chart is appropriate, then we will update any other documents. This is the flow. So when you ask, and if you look at the flow chart, what you ask for is that the attorney gets it first. The first bullet is the green, which is the change that shows that the city attorney and the records administrator, as you directed, receive it at the same time. From there, it goes to what was originally step 1.
So, the next meeting, the narrative is going to agree with the flow chart. Is that what you're saying?
It won't even have to take the next meeting. If you guys bless it today, then as we mentioned in the previous meeting, we'll update the memo and we'll set up training. So it won't have to come back for another meeting. Remember, the next step was to train you on those items, including SharePoint, once you're fine with the flow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is an action item, right?
It is, but I think you have a question.
Ms. Rollins, I did, I'm sorry. You had your hand up.
So quick question or clarification. At the top, by the budget manager, I think it's supposed to have another bracket. It shouldn't go directly into the green box. You know how you had a bracket on one side?
For the budget manager?
Where are you from?
At the top of review comment period, it shouldn't have one just go automatically. It should have another bracket on the right before it goes to prepare financial impact statement. So, because that's a combined review process.
Got it. It's all a part of the review.
Exactly.
It needs to be captured in that whole review
And then it
process.
goes to the fiscal impact.
That makes sense. That's right.
And then city clerk and city council. You can't have 3 arrows coming out of a box. So I think we're supposed to take the line out of the city clerk going into the blue box. I told you I like busy.
Hold on 1 second. I want to make sure I capture you. So we've got this other one. That's a simple one. Make sure you bracket that in so it's clear to everybody where they are.
That's a combined review process.
I follow that very clearly, but I think I may be missing you on the portion where you're talking about the clerk.
Come all the way down, almost at the end of the process, and it's the 4th
Got it.
box.
Break it out. Break it out because
Yeah,
you
you
can't have
have
it come
three.
to all. Yeah.
So you need a decision point box
Got
to
it.
decide if you're having a public hearing. You can't just go into a box, it can't have 3.
Got it. Got it.
One of the things.
I'm sorry, my consulting background.
Well, you're right. You should add another box there
Yes,
because.
decision point box.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes, sir.
Also, they would like to make it a little bigger.
Got it.
A little darker. A little darker, a little bigger.
I think we had to make it this size to include it in your printed packet, but we got you.
Ms. Jackson asked, Ms. Gilliard asked me to read. You can read that 2 big right there.
But and some of these are technical changes and we need to clean it up. So it kind of sounds like we did incorporate those things, but you need your bracket, that's for clarity. And then the decision box is just to make it extra clear for everybody else, even though that's kind of a, yes. So we have those.
I know we talked about the public review being optional.
To put a decision box to show that that's not mandatory, it's an option. Got it.
Okay. Let me do this. This is an action item. So,
I think he will bring it back.
I mean, it's an action item. I didn't take a motion.
I move that we hold this until the next city council meeting.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Yes. Go ahead.
I'm confused. What is the action? What are we deciding?
Remember, so the council first asked for a process.
Right.
Bring the process. And when it was time to approve it, the council said, well, we want to make sure that we've got these 4 changes. We want to make sure that they're incorporated before we approve it. Incorporated, and now the council would approve. This is our legislative process on how we're going to deliver legislation, track it, and bring it forth to vote on it. And so you're voting on either this is the process or something different.
Okay, so I know that my goal was that we just understand where things are in the pipeline. We already have a resolution that says 7 to 14 days, whether it has a fist or not, it goes through the thing. And the whole point was just to have everybody comment on it, and for us to be able to have a visual representation or a tracker, so we would know where, if I have submitted a piece of legislation and I know that Amelia reviewed it, I know that our city attorney had reviewed it, and I'm just wondering where it is in the process, we could just look at a spreadsheet and figure that out.
Or SharePoint.
Or whatever. I'm not sure, like, why we are voting on a memo or an org chart or a Visio chart. Like, we vote on, I took a couple of parliamentarian classes. I was parliamentarian for a few minutes. We vote on resolutions and ordinances. This is neither a resolution or an ordinance. This is a memo about how you process legislation. So this feels like we are way out of our lane, approving or disapproving your process for getting through legislation. All we really need is to make sure that whoever needs to comment on it needs to comment on it, and that you all do that either in 7 days or 14 days. I feel like we're really overstepping by telling you how to do that. Like, we just ask you to comment on it so we can get on it.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Gill. I'm sorry, Mr. Cleo, you finished?
So I just want to follow up on what you're saying, because it's and it really is about the pipeline. The pipeline was clogged and nobody knew where everything was going. That's what started the conversation. And so some are over here with the attorney getting help doing it. Some are over here trying to do it themselves and maybe get to the attorney. And then it gets all, and she's getting everything. And it's conflicting because some people are working on the same thing and they don't know that this is happening. But part of it is us by not communicating until we get here. So if we were writing and we were sharing with everybody sitting up here, then everybody would know what everybody is working on, and we wouldn't be bumping into each other, okay? So that's the second piece of it. So then the next part of it is, okay, it's a little bit too much for the attorney to be helping with all of this legislation, because it seems like it's just coming. And even if there are other people at the firm working on it, it's a lot of work, okay? So it would seem then that you would need to, she's gonna be the assistance, because we need the legal assistance, and then we need somebody who is going to track what's going on. So the way the conversation started out at the last meeting, and I was the first one after he made the presentation, thought it was an excellent presentation, but what I saw was that even though it was, the missing piece was that it should really be going to who's going to track it and who's going to go, and it going to the attorney at the same time, so that somebody outside of us knows what's in the pipeline, okay? And this is because we're not communicating. So somebody outside of us knows what's in the pipeline. And of course the attorney does while she's trying to churn out all of this. And so for instance, if you and I, Mr. Khalid, are working on Ordinance A, and I send it to the attorney on Monday, and you send it to the attorney on Tuesday, and each time it is sent, Mr. Ronaldo gets it, then he knows, hey, we've got two things in the pipeline, and they are the same thing. Then it comes to what is going to be the next step that says, do you two want to work on this together and sponsor it together? Assuming that you and I have not had a discussion about working on the same thing. So there are a lot of different steps in it that I thought was well thought out. The only thing I thought was missing was the fact that it wasn't going to do two different people at the same time. so that both would know what is going on and what's in the pipeline. And he would be the one that would be dealing with the ordinance, with the fits and all of that, when now the attorney is not only helping us with the legislation, but trying to get the fits where it needs to go. She's doing everything, in other words. And so, you know, all of this coordination. So that, to me, is one of the things that's really good about it. It just, I think, needs to be refined a little more. And the narrative part needs to agree with the chart, because the chart is just a visual of the narrative anyway. So, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Ms. Rao?
My understanding of what this process is, it is our business process. In the past, we kind of operated where everybody was not clear about what the process looked like, who should be reviewing, how it should get on the agenda. So this solves that problem to me. I also think that we are at a point where, as we approach the close of the transition period, we should not have, or will not have the same volume of ordinances that we have had up until this point, because we're really at the point we're doing whole titles, with maybe the exception of zone, and we're going to spend some time on that. That's a huge document. But what it says is that although we've done that, this process is speaking to that we won't pass legislation without having an understanding of the fiscal ramifications. And it's a new business process. I mean, we've done what we needed to do to get to this point, but this is going to be our, once we find to it, this is how we do legislation in the city.
All right.
Exactly.
So speaking of that, this is something as a council we should approve. No one should tell us what our process should be as policymakers. You can make recommendations to us, but the final say-so should come from us, and edits should come from us. And I do feel that we do need a process in place, because just today, I'm finding out we got 2 ethics ordinances going. The one that you sent us, and then there are people working in silos creating another ethics ordinance. And so this process will prevent that. And by the way, we all need that ethics ordinance, so we won't be arguing about it on November 27th.
I'd just like to say this. I hope it makes sense to you. If you let the attorney write the ordinances, you may not be bucking a lot of heat. If there, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. In Fulton County, we never put an ordinance. We called our attorney, told her what we wanted. She sent us back, she did it, sent us back a draft. All right? We circulated that draft around to everybody to make this, and it was a done deal.
What happened if y'all wanted, were both told them to write an ordinance?
We didn't write ordinance.
No, I'm saying, what about you and another commissioner both called the attorney and said, I want an ordinance on this?
Then we get together. Then we get, yes, I'm not saying, yes, we would get together. We get together. I mean, Em and I did that a lot. We get together and we talk about it with the attorney, all right, and then we move forward. Okay, I just want to put that out there. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Clerk?
I do believe there's action on it.
Huh?
So I think
there's a motion to hold.
There's a motion on the floor to hold the next meeting.
I think, Mayor, one thing to highlight, I think Councilmember Gilliard mentioned that the process doesn't necessarily match. I think if you look at page 212 and you look at steps 1 through 17, those are actually the steps that are in the actual workflow chart. And in addition to that, I didn't even know that we included it on time, but it even starts with that step 1 that you asked for and includes everything that is in your existing ordinance. And so while those visual corrections may need to be made, I would also say that if you look at 1 through 17, it is actually your process that is you have passed ordinances for and the additions that you had asked for. And so more than welcome to hold it, but I think what you asked for is actually written in number 1 through 17.
Okay.
So you can't see it.
There's a motion on the floor.
So you're absolutely correct. That disagrees with the chart. The narrative before it doesn't.
That was the old one from the 27th. Yes, ma'am. That's what I was saying, is that we wouldn't change it from the 27th.
Oh, I see.
You see?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on the same page.
I see it's dated September 27th.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion on the floor.
The motion was to, I made the motion to hold it until the next council meeting when everything has been corrected, the flow chart is accurate. I think some of my colleagues, most of the colleagues said the flow chart needs to be larger and it needs to be more visible. And hopefully between now and the 27th, we would have gotten with Mr. Pascal and you would have gotten with us to make sure that everything is in order for us to vote on prior to the meeting.
In a second. Any further discussion?
I'm sorry.
Here.
I just have to have a point of order. Actions are binding. So how are we bound if we vote yes or no for this? Because like, let's say we vote yes for this process. It doesn't mean that once this goes through the process, you are compelled to put it on the agenda. Does it?
Sounds like it does.
It does.
It does.
So if something goes through this process.
We agree to bring it back to the next agenda, that's what we're gonna do.
No, I'm saying if a piece of legislation goes through this process, are you as the mayor compelled to put it on the agenda after it goes through this process?
So it would be the fair thing to do. I mean, it's fair.
It would be right. So I'm just that's what I'm trying to understand. Like, what is binding? If someone does not go through this process, is their thing kept off the agenda? Like, what is?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, I think the process is great. All right.
Is there a
resolution? Facilitate, but there's other things I consider is time,
right,
emergency, and other things like that. If it's urgency there, so yeah. But most of the time, it's probably on the agenda.
Is there a resolution or ordinances attached to this? Like that's what I'm just trying to figure out, because when we vote on something, it becomes like a law, right? Like, so is this the law? Like, once we say yes or no?
Well, can I clarify? So when you vote on this, you're only compelled to do what it says. And to clarify, it's subject to what it says not being in conflict with the charter.
Right.
Like, for example, if you drafted this where it says that the mayor couldn't establish the priority of the agenda, then that would be in conflict with the charter, because he does get to establish the priority. In the current form, you really don't have anything that says you have to do X, Y, Z. So if you adopt as is, it's more of just setting the model. But there's nothing in here that says that if you don't adhere to this model, then it's going to be a violation of the process. So if you do want those restraints in there, then you need to let us know so I can put language in that commits you to this.
And then and this also means that if it's not binding, in the absence of this, we can just keep doing what we've been doing if we don't approve it tonight, right?
Mr. Mayor.
Is that correct? I mean, it doesn't mean, so if we don't approve this tonight, it doesn't mean that no one can submit any legislation.
No.
No, and that's correct. You just maintain status quo.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I did see her down the end first. All right.
We have gone through this exercise and given our feedback. I hope we are not wasting each other's time and defining the process. If it goes through this, it's my understanding, or was my belief, that it should go on the agenda and it's just voted up or down by the council. If we're all moving towards a process that we can live with, that's the right thing to do.
Okay. All right. Mr. Clerk? I'm sorry, let me get the motion. All right. That was the discussion we had. Is there, let's vote. All those in favor?
To hold it to the
next council meeting. All those in favor? Aye. That passes 4 votes. Thank you, guys. All right, 5. Yeah.
It's 5 votes. Mark Baker voted.
That's why I thought it was 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, 5 votes. Thank you for your correction.
I don't believe you have any other action items.
That's a good thing. City Manager, what's your report?
The items that would be in my report would actually be addressed during executive session.
Okay, City Attorney, do you have a report?
No, Mayor, other than I have very brief personnel and litigation updates to do.
Okay.
In executive session.
Yes, question.
Yeah, just real quick. We are sending out notices of who the sanitation providers are, when are they going to go out, and when are they going to be in people's bills?
Senior, we provided those earlier today. I don't have them in front of me, but some of those items went out today. It used snail mail, so within the next 3 business days.
So everyone's going to get something in the mail separately or part of their bills?
So as part, no, so through their Greystone deal, through our partnership with them, they'll get an update on sanitation. We did a separate mailer for the individual registered voters related to sanitation, and we've done some contracted, some electronic mail as well.
And then when is the soonest that anyone could be held in violation of the sanitation rules?
I defer that to our city attorney.
So technically, if you're not in compliance upon adoption, you can hold them in violation, but I would recommend that you give a courtesy period for fitness as we put this out there.
Mr. City Manager, I would like to ask you to make clarification. We've been getting several emails. There's been a lot of verbiage on social media that these vendors are collecting franchise fees or infrastructure fees on behalf of the city. And I just want you to make clarification and set the record straight that we have not instructed any vendor, and no vendor is collecting fees on behalf of our city. They are being charged a franchise fee, but it's up to the vendor how they choose to recoup that fee. We have not, as the city, instructed anybody or any vendor to charge additional fees on sanitation on behalf of the city.
Well, I think you clarified it, council member, that's correct. So,
That's correct.
I mean, I think what the citizens should know, and the council should also know and understand, is that, yes, we are not implementing these costs on our citizens, but it is a business practice that when the environment changes, that they have the option to do 2 things. That is, one, they pass the cost on to the customer, or they absorb those costs. As you know, our 5% is a minimum cost, and so vendors do have the option in this environment to either pass it on or absorb it. And what we've seen is that everyone has not passed the cost on. There are some vendors that are choosing to absorb it, while others are assuming to pass it on.
Okay, and for the attorney, I still have not gotten that comprehensive list of ordinances and resolutions at the last council meeting. You said I would have in 48 hours, and I still haven't gotten it. So can you please, these are the legislation pieces before the process is implemented. A list of ordinances and resolutions with the sponsor's name is what I think we all need. And then also, can you please send prior to November 27th, and I'm going to ask that you send this within the next 3 days, whatever ethics policy that you are working on, that you have, can you send it before this to everybody on this council to be able to read and give input? It is not fair that a silo of people get together and determine what our ethics policy is for everyone. We need everyone to be able to weigh in.
Okay, we're at city managers and Ms. Jackson.
You miss it, that's what it is.
Okay, that was real funny. Ms. Killian, just a few minutes.
Okay, real quick. I have a certain vendor for sanitation, and I did not look at my bill until one of my constituents, who's the president of her HOA, is getting a lot of flack from her HOA members because the same vendor is charging an infrastructure fee and a franchise fee. And that's what it says in the invoice, and I looked at it. And so it prompted me to look at mine, because I hadn't looked at it, I pay it online. And I went and looked at it, and I'm charged $1.88, and it says franchise fee. So that's number one. Number two, the HOA president called the vendor, and the vendor was told the HOA person, one vendor said, we are collecting this on behalf of the city. The second one said, she said, I have met with city council, and aware of these fees. So I need to tell you who the vendor is so that you can talk to that vendor and really straighten them out, because people are really upset about it. And I'm sure that some of the flack that's going on in social media, because they're being told one thing and we're being told something else, and then we don't know, I don't know how to respond, I didn't know what to tell her, and if I hadn't looked at my own bill, if she sent me her bill so that I could see that's what they were really doing. I just wanted to say that.
All right, Mr. Kirkbride.
I do want to mention something. I think all the fees, whatever, when we selected these vendors, whatever prices they quote, because what they also don't want to have is 35,000 households trying to price shop, so they understand what the fees are in terms of sanitation services. That saves them some phone calls and some frustration on the part of our residents. And secondly, as it relates to, I've heard some of the same things. There's a lot of chatter on Nextdoor regarding this. And again, franchise fees deal with utilities. You said it's an infrastructure and an admin fee. And I do want to know, they do have an option to, I guess, tack that on. I'd like to know which ones are doing that. And thirdly, are they by zone? Because I've heard from some of my residents that they called around and in District 1 it's only waste industries. Are we doing it solely by zone?
It's the vendor's discretion. If they want to only provide services to a certain area, they have that flexibility.
Okay, so it may be true in terms of my residents.
So we don't require anyone to give citywide service. If they want to limit their service to District 2, they're allowed to do that.
But then I want my chart to be clear, because again, I think to be transparent to the residents, they understand, because from what I'm hearing, the only one that's providing in District 1 is waste industries.
That's a possibility. It's just exclusively up to the vendor.
It's fine. I just want that to be clear to everybody, so they don't have to call around and get frustrated. And then I wouldn't have communicated we have 8 sanitation vendors, because really in my area I only have 1, is my point. So I want that out there and it's clear to the public, and we put it on our sanitation page so that I don't get frustrated and I don't frustrate the residents by not giving accurate information.
Absolutely.
It's Mr. Khalid.
Oh, my hand was up first. You just didn't look at me.
Go ahead, Mr. Khalid. I want them as gums, and we're going to do Mr. Khalid, and that's it. Because it's 9:30.
So for recycling and bulk, is that still up to the vendor as well, or is it not a requirement for all of the sanitation vendors to have?
It's up to the vendor. If they want to give recycling services, it's part of the flexibility of what they provide.
Okay, so that would need to be added in the chart as well.
Okay, Mr. Khalid.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, and we apologize for opening up this can of worms, but I do think it's a can of worms that needs to be opened. Ms. Vance talked about reporting, and Old National East talked about reporting people who do not have sanitation service. So we do not have, unless our code enforcement people are going to be doing that, I don't know how they would do that. We don't have anyone that's assigned to make sure that everyone has sanitation service. And so when a neighbor reports another neighbor for not having sanitation service, and I'm going to wait because the 2 people that I need to talk to most are talking to each other. No, it's fine. Yeah, when one neighbor reports that another neighbor doesn't have sanitation service, one, how are they prosecuted? Like, what is the prosecution of that? How long do they have to come in compliance? And 3, if they do not come into compliance, a provider of last resort selected by the city is supposed to provide that service. Have we done that?
So do we have a foolproof process of determining who's compliant? No, but it's similar to who's running an Airbnb. I mean, you really just don't know until you have
somebody reports
information. Yeah, until you have information that says otherwise. So if consumers or if neighbors report each other and say, this person doesn't have services, then it would be like any other violation. We would take the evidence that we have that they don't have service, take that to court. They can refute that by showing a contract with one of the authorized vendors, or it would be up to the judge to determine whether there was sufficient.
So I'm asking specifically, I feel, Mark and I are neighbors, I feel like Mark doesn't have sanitation service. Do I call a number at City Hall? Where do I call and say, my neighbor doesn't have sanitation service? What do I need to provide? Are you prosecuting him? Is our solicitor prosecuting them? How do I enforce this ordinance that we passed?
Well, that would be the code enforcement. They would do it as they do any prosecutions against the actual person. So they would say this homeowner is non-compliant with the ordinance, and they would just put that on the court docket.
Is there any evidence that I need to provide, or do I just call them?
Well, if they don't have sufficient evidence, because people can not like their neighbor and tell a story on the neighbor. So
what constitutes sufficient evidence?
If they say that this person has no provider, and then we subpoena our known providers, and we find out that none of these are servicing this unit. If there is trash accumulating, and they are taking photographs of the trash that's accumulating, and
So I call code enforcement. You will then subpoena all of the people on our approved list to see if that address is on that list.
Well, we have not. So it's kind of similar to any code enforcement violation.
I'm gonna stop because it sounds like we don't have that part worked out. My last question is when they are forced, because our ordinance says there is a provider of last resort, right? So there's someone is just not getting it, and we make them get it. Who are we making them get it?
We have a vendor who we intend to contract with for that purpose, and they are helping us to compile information to where we will know who may or may not be receiving service.
Okay, Mr. Lee, did you want to say something?
Yeah, actually, we have, I've spoken with Director Reed. We're expecting to get a list from each one of the providers or people that they're providing services to, and then we'll reconcile that with our tax code to make sure.
Answer your question. Mr. Baker, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I would like to ask that we could, I think we owe it to our citizens to have some type of a work session to explain all of the details of this, because it's so great to many of us, whereas many of us are still trying to digest the information. And I think there's a lot of people here, a lot of people at home who are still just trying to figure out what's going on. So I would ask you, Mr. Mayor, to put the work session on the next agenda so that we can invite everybody that's watching us out so they could understand and get this information.
Okay, let's move on. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Clerk Brown.
You have no further items.
Okay, can I get a motion to go into executive session?
I move that we go into executive session immediately.
For
Personnel and litigation.
For real estate.
No, what is it? What is it for?
Personnel, real estate, and litigation.
Personnel, real estate, and litigation.
That's fine. I still like that.
Good night, everyone. Thank you all for
Mark, I'm trying to be good.
I understand, sir, but I'm on mute. I haven't taken a lot of time this
It
meeting.
doesn't matter.
Real quick, I just have two things that people need to know. This Saturday, we're having the first annual Small Business Expo at Oakley Township with myself and Christopher Pike will be there. And so we're inviting everybody in District 7 out to the clubhouse for the Small Business Expo on this Saturday from 12 to 4. As well as next week, myself and world-class boxing coach Percy Mack in District 7 will be having boxing classes from 1 to 3 o'clock for the young people who are going to be out of school next week for Thanksgiving break, and they're going to be free. Slots are based off the people who reach out to me in reference to that, but it's going to be from 1 to 3, and it'll be in my newsletter and information. Any parents, anybody who wants to enroll their kid in that class, I'll be there, as well as world-class boxing champion, District 7 resident, Mr. Percy Mack. Thanks.
No, we need to vote. I second the motion that Ms. Gilliard made, so we can go in executive session. Can somebody call, Mayor, can you call for the vote?
Yes, all those in favor? All those in favor going to executive session? Okay, that passes. Let's go to executive session. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
We're good. I mean, I lost the quorum and I closed the meeting.
All right.
That's good. We're good. We're good.
10:41? Oh, we finished?
Yeah, I lost the quorum and closed
I will
the meeting.
see y'all next week at our special.